Hi, good evening, everybody. And my name is Sushmita. And on behalf of the South Asia Social Norm Learning Collaborative, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this round of webinar. It's also a very great moment for the South Asia Learning Collaborative today as we complete our 1 year of endeavor and initiative to talk, learn, discuss, and check with each other where we are in terms of our interventions, in terms of our efforts to shift regressive, restrictive social norms in our society that enable women and girls, men and women to walk freely, healthy, and live in dignity with equality and equity in their lives. In this opportune moment, it's so nice that we have 4 beautiful presentations from South Asian countries, and that will tell us and inform us that how social norm is interventions are possible to walk through the different journeys. There are different journeys where social norms need different types of interventions. And we have a beautiful moderator who is a very knowledgeable and expert in this domain. I would like to introduce you to Kamani Jindasa, who is our great moderator today. Kamani is the executive director and founder of Shanti Margam, which explores innovative and multidisciplinary approaches to increase the well-being of adolescents and youth of communities to break through the cycles of violence. She is a social justice activist and gender specialist with over 20 years of experience. A national from Sri Lanka, she is also an international expert in the field of sexual and reproductive health, gender-based violence, engaging men and boys for gender equality. Ramani has worked extensively in her field in the areas of minimum standards in child protection work, and she has worked with gender advisor for UNFPA, and she currently works as a World Bank as a senior gender specialist and gender-based violence specialist for South Asia region. So welcome Kamani to this platform, to this learning collaborative. While I introduce Kamani, I also would like to request all participants to please drop in their questions in the chat and the Q&A box, and our presenters will try to respond them on the chat and Q&A, or at the end there would be a Q&A session also where we would like to for more strong discussions about norm shifting initiatives and what are some of the questions that our audience has that would be really interesting for us to understand that what still needs to be researched here. So with that, I hand over to Kamani.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am honored to moderate this informative session today on harnessing the South Asia Social Norms Learning Collaborative Communities Wisdom, norm shifting initiatives from South Asia. When seeking to facilitate positive change within societies, communities, families, or even at the individual level, changing social norms plays an important role in influencing this change and encouraging interest in participating in activities to move towards change. Today's exciting panel will present examples of social norm shifting programs or components from not only actors in civil society, but from the private sector in South Asia. This session will bring together academics and practitioners who have worked on such programs across menstrual health and hygiene management, to child marriages, to female genital mutilation, and maternal and child health, to share their learnings. Today's panelists will share rich experiences supported with rigorous research outcomes, reflecting the impact of work across these difficult areas to change social norms within communities. Examples which give us much food for thought and opportunities for scale up. As mentioned before, the structure today will be the presentation of 4 case studies, which will have 12 to 15 minutes each. After all the presentations, there will be a question and answer session. So I would also encourage you to start keying in your questions while the presentations are ongoing, so we can respond at the end. So starting with our first presentation. In Bangladesh, 3.4 million people work in the garment sector, and of this, almost half are female. However, a women-friendly workplace and environment are often absent. Menstrual health and hygiene management, MHM, is an essential issue within public health and women's health. 14% of women workers cite menstruation as a reason for absenteeism, and 7% of women workers cite it as a reason for leaving. Our first presentation is titled A Social Business Case on MHM at the Bangladeshi Garments. This project aims to demonstrate the business case for investing in MHM and WASH for factory owners. WaterAid implemented certain measures to increase and address increase the usage of MHM techniques and address the issue of absenteeism, which was captured through a knowledge, attitudes, and practices survey. Our presenter, Nurullah Awal, will explain this further. Dr. Awal is a health advisor at WaterAid Bangladesh and has coordinated WASH and health interventions and discussions, mainly with the Ministry of Health, other key partners, and NGOs. He is a member of the National Technical Committee on WASH at the Directorate of Health Bangladesh. He has contributed towards developing several key national documents, including the Strategy for WASH in Healthcare Facilities, WASH Guidelines for Community Clinics, the National Menstrual Hygiene Strategy, and National Cholera Control Plan. Dr. Awal is also the chair of the WASH Working Group at the Global Task Force for Cholera Control, GTFCC Geneva, and a member of the representing team on cholera-related discussions from WaterAid. He is also an executive committee member of the National CSA SUN in Bangladesh. Over to you, Dr. Awal.
I think you can see my slides.
Yes, please.
Okay, so thank you very much, moderator, and also welcome to the presentation from WaterAid Bangladesh and our sharing experience from the garment factories on the social business case on menstrual hygiene management. And I'm Nurullah Awal, the health advisor at WaterAid Bangladesh, sharing the experience from our works in the garment sector. So already our moderator has shared that over 3 million population are working in the garment sector, and most of them are female. And interestingly, for a long time, over 20 years, the women-friendly workplace and environment is an isolated and ignored issue. The societal mindset is also not very conducive to adopt the change that has been advocated and shared from the buyers as well, from the different right-based organization. So particularly the menstrual hygiene management is the main reason that had been found from different study. About 14% of women workers take leave, and they actually remain absent, and 7% of workers, women workers, take leave during the menstruation. So this MHM is fundamentally an important issue within public health and women's health, particularly from the perspective of workplace safety and productivity. This intervention actually provided the MHM management and actually advocated for women-friendly workplace that had been advocated for a long time from the buyers. And you may know that 84% of the national export income coming from the RMG sector in Bangladesh. So to meet the 2030 goal, this has been an agenda from the donors, from the buyers, from the right-based organization, and from the buyers compliance issue as well. So this has been in place that from different study, we came to know that there are business benefits as well in investing in wash, particularly in the MHM, to reduce the absenteeism and to improve the productivity. But with this project, particularly, WaterAid tried to capture an experience through some garment in factories that tried to create an evidence. And for this, we made a very quick situation analysis in 2019 in some of the garments industry, like what were the barriers, where are the gaps, so that we can build on them the interventions. So WaterAid tried to develop different step-by-step guidelines for the companies with whom they worked during the project intervention phase, so that we can really enumerate the business value as well as the financial value to help them understand the importance of investing in wash, particularly MHM and the wash improvement at large. So primary concentration was on hand washing and improvement of the MHM support and service within the factories to empower the female workers to bring benefits to the business factory owners so that they really understand. And for this process, we compile the process outputs, analyze the data so that we can really understand the outcomes and the return on investment. For this, the interventions that we grossly did in the factories, we appointed factories cleaners so that they clean the toilets, and we encourage them to establish or renovate gender segregated toilets, ensure necessary monitoring, provided sanitary safe pads at reduced price, and deployed change agents from the workers itself so that they can really be within the group and support awareness activities and help behavior change activities. So through this project, within the RMG factories, we did provided bin at the female toilets so that they dispose the sanitary pad in the bins, and they don't throw it in the pan. Then awareness messages developed, hosted, and posted in different visible places. There were IC materials developed and distributed. There were sessions on groups on one-to-one basis. And also we engaged the factory owners, factory management people to create the access and opportunities for the worker to practice safe MHM in the factory. So we can share some of the photos from the intervention. We, as we mentioned, we set the bins in the toilets, and we also hosted different IEC materials with very informative, very communicative language, Indian language, with some pictorial so that they really understand in the toilets and in other visible places. So we found that before the intervention, there were study results showed 12% of staffs threw the pads in the commodes, but which is actually nil now, and 66% dispose the pads in the bins. We had organized different menstrual hygiene management awareness program for the factory workers, for the change agents, and also involving the males in the factory premise, involving the management authority. So there were enough and adequate menstrual hygiene management awareness program to break the taboo, to break the social stigma, so that they have the very conducive environment, the enabling environment, so that they can really feel, share, and discuss all these very personal issues, all these very shy issues, so that we wanted to break the silence here. And through this menstrual hygiene management program, we tried to actually empower the female workforce. We developed the knowledge on menstrual cycle. This is a very scientific thing. This is a very physiological thing, so that they understand, they break the taboo on this common practice, and also take decision on their personal health. And also use of proper MHM materials. We supplied sanitary pads, as we already mentioned. We established vending machine in the premise so that they can collect it in the subsidized rates. And also we introduced different disposal facility like bins, so that they really do the proper disposal of the sanitary safe pads or even clothes. And also build the confidence within the workers so that they really follow the do's and don'ts in the premise. So the ultimate purpose was to develop the overall knowledge and practice of MHM, contributing to better earning through the absenteeism diminished and the leave they usually used to take declined or no leave at all. So with the IEC materials developed, we try to capture so that they can really feel it, they can really understand it, and the material can communicate with them with pictures, with the message very clear, and also through the trainings. We involve the males and we develop some video material so that they can really feel that these are the products for them from their life, and they really can learn and use this knowledge in their daily life. These are other some examples about the information on when to change the pad, how to use the pad, and don't use the leftover of the garments materials, so and so, and encouraging them about the sanitary pad, the change agents, that is a acknowledgement from the authority so that they really can better understand and share the knowledge with their colleagues. The vending machine established in the below photo you can see, and all this together was a contribution to the knowledge development of the staffs. During the corona period also, we had the opportunity to establish adequate number of hand washing options, so that also paddle operated, also the height maintained, like on different level of basins we established, and the slogan we used, that everyone's hand should remain clean at all time. This thing we try to promote from this training and awareness campaign. So finally, what is the learning of this project intervention? In the beginning, when we made this situational survey in 2019, we found the gaps regarding the use of reusable clothes and leftover garments, but not that much sanitary pad, and lack of female-friendly toilets and also disposal facility was a concern. So you know that I mentioned 12% of the staffs threw the pads in the commodes, and also overall information and awareness on MHM, menstrual cycle, safe practice. All these issues were in the identified as the gaps and bottlenecks for this garment sector. So when we made a midline survey in 2020, and then we found that knowledge among workers and management people is improved, made them more confident, because we involved the change agent from that particular workers community, and also that ensured comfort and good health among female workers, improved the practice of do's and don'ts, and all these contributed to their better earning. We can just show you the access to household level safe water. In the beginning, safely managed water support was actually nil, which raised to 31% with the project intervention and ending. And safe sanitation facility at the household level again was zero at the beginning, because the concept of safely managed sanitation, safely managed water supply was not at that level in the beginning, but water rate supported and helped development and establishment of this support system. And when we found at the end that safely managed sanitation system was in 26% households, and also these interventions contributed to the improvement of the hand washing. We found that 70% of the female workers are hand washing after the lunch or after the meals they take with soap and water, which was only 0.9% at the beginning. They did not use the water, they did not wash the soap, but water only. Sorry. And also that gender segregated toilets contributed to their 100% latrine use, and after latrine use 100% hand washing with soap and water. MHM practice also improved with the sanitary napkin 66%, which was 38% in the beginning of the project, and 20% decrease of uses of reusable clothes. So it is also regarding the attitude and behavior on sanitary napkin. And overall, all this improved the rejection rate, which was for 4% in the beginning, came down to only 2%. All these also contributed to the financial benefits, like for the absenteeism, there was about 0.7 million taka lost, but which came down to only 0.1 million taka. And also health expenditure has decreased compared to the baseline outcome, not very much, but also significant, like average expenditure per person was 400 plus taka, which was 500 taka at the baseline. Sorry. An amount of average income of the worker is also increased during the project phase. And overall, the return on investment found grossly 2.5, including the social and other benefits. Because we say grossly 2.5 because in different garment factory that was in range from 2.25 to 5. So that was the range. Finally, in conclusion, we like to say that the management also found some benefits because the operational cost for the sanitation facilities, the closing, or sometimes there was problem with the sanitation channel, but this operation and maintenance cost came to substantially reduced. There was a reduced early leave, decreased absenteeism, reduced staff turnover. The staffs feel very comfortable with working in this garment factory, improve the quality of production, higher level of satisfaction, more productivity of the workforce. So altogether, that increased the factory reputation, better brand value, and improve the factory-buyer relationship. So all this together, we feel that these are creating and good evidence for replication to other garment factories. So this is the concluding slide that we advocate from WaterAid, that we can change lives through three fundamental things: clean water, decent toilet, and good hygiene, which is applicable for any community, any industrial setup, and any institution like a school, hospital, public places like public toilet, etc. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thanks. Over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Awal. I would like to remind participants to raise their questions in the chat box. We saw one question, so please go ahead. Okay, so since 2011, the practice of female khatna, cuffs, or sunat, also known as female genital mutilation, has become a big topic of debate in India and globally, with certain countries like Guinea, Bissau, Kenya, and Uganda actually banning it completely through the implementation of laws. The 1,400-year-old religious ritual has been promoted as a social norm to mark identity, purity, and femininity within the Bora community. Over the years, two clear camps have emerged: the pro-FGM supporters and the anti-FGM advocates. In 2020, Mumkin App LLP conducted a community-driven research to document the experiences, feelings, and struggles of over 200 Boras with conflicting ideological standpoints, as they understood, challenged, and defended the ritual in their personal and public realms. The research provides a springboard to mediate sensitive, inclusive, well-researched, and collaborative exchanges on the practice of female khatna in the future. The research findings will be presented by two speakers, Ritika Subrama and Priya Goswami. Ritika Subrama has spent the past decade working as a journalist and researcher from Mumbai, India. She is currently a doctoral student and Gates Cambridge Scholar at the University of Cambridge Center for Gender Studies. Her work stands at the intersections of gender, labor, and migration. She worked as a research consultant with Mumkin LLP. Priya Goswami is a national award-winning documentary filmmaker, co-founder, CEO of Mumkin App LLP, and an international nonprofit, Sahio. She has experience of over a decade of advocacy and storytelling on gender-based violence. Her documentary, A Pinch of Skin, is the first documentary from India to shine light on the prevalence of khatna in India, winning the 60th National Film Award. Over to Ritika and Priya to present Speaking Up, Speaking With, talking about female khatna in the Bora community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamani. It's an honor to be here talking about a subject that Ritika and I hold so dearly. We've worked closely, accruing firsthand experiences of survivors with survivors, creating a ground up movement on talking about female genital cutting within the Bora community. Next slide, please. Okay, who are we? So Mumkin is co-founded by a survivor and an ally team. I'm the ally here. My co-founder Arifa Jori had undergone the practice of Khatna herself, and we are a feminist tech company. And with our decade-long experience of first-hand documenting and understanding the social norm, we were able to come to the conclusion of two main gaps. And those two gaps are the culture of silence around the subject of female genital cutting. I have been in many rooms talking about FGC, and I have not come across a single room where there's a kind of a dread that fills up the room when people hear female genital cutting or female genital mutilation. There's definitely a culture of silence around the subject, and there's a culture of silence within the community. And the second most important gap that we've identified is a lack of language. By language, we mean how can a survivor effectively open up about her or their trauma on the subject, and a lack of space. And by space, we mean there is so much social media around us, and one would assume that social media is a safe space, but it sadly isn't, because social media is heavily monitored by people who support the practice. And then the consequences of speaking up or speaking against the subject can be massive. And so co-presenting with me is Ritika. She's my colleague, and she's also the author of the Mumkin research study. So we are together going to talk about the challenges of talking about the social norm within the community. Next slide, please. Culture of cutting. First and foremost, I have to say this here. Every time we speak about this subject in the Indian context, we hear that, oh, I think I've heard about this, but this is an African problem. Let's foreground this first. This is a relatively new conversation. Female khatna, khavs, sunnat, female genital cutting, however, is a 1,400-year-old religious ritual in the Bora community alone. It's a socially constructed gender norm, which primarily is passed on from one generation to another to assert identity, purity, and femininity. It is also extremely crucial to note that there is absolutely no written evidence of prevalence of female khatna or presenting female khatna as a diktat in the Quran. So why is it being passed on from one generation to the other? So it's been interpreted, performed, defended in many, many ways. And of course, when it comes to anything to do with female sexual health, there is a culture of silence which is carefully guarding the subject matter. Needless to say, it is a harmful traditional practice and a form of gender-based violence. Next slide, please. Ritika, over to you.
Yeah. So taking on from where Priya just left us here, where she was talking about the practice being over 1,400 years old, but then the conversations around the practice, the more public conversations around the practice are just about a decade old, wherein in the beginning of 2011, there was a signature petition that came online, an anonymous one. And slowly from then on with, media coverage and other things, it has become a big topic of discussion and debate in India and globally. And these conversations essentially have ranged from, personal conversations and WhatsApp exchanges, religious sermons, parliamentary debates, even legal trials and primetime headlines. So yes, it has become a broad, big conversation. And some reasons given for perpetuating and upholding the ritual, based on where you are standing in this ideological stance over here standpoint, would be to control the female sexual experience on the one hand, while some others continue to believe and firmly believe that it is a cultural marker, a marker of purity. So, which is why over the years, given this whole culture of silence and this, public-private sort of conversation trajectory that has taken place, there have been two clear polarized factions that have emerged over the years, over the past decade. On the one hand, we have the anti-Khatna advocates. On the other, we have the more pro-Khatna supporters, thereby dividing the community and making it difficult for people to openly broach up the subject. And like we mentioned earlier, as one second, just yeah, like I mentioned earlier, as the topic of female khatna has been shrouded in the culture of silence, it was very important for us to, begin that conversation. Opening up on the subject was very much the first step that we wanted to take. So, which is why between 2020 and 2021, we decided to, sort of come together and put together a community driven research study wherein to sort of start documenting some of these experiences, the prevalence, as well as more importantly the attitudes and feelings attached to communicating about khatna. What is this whole culture of silence about? We wanted to break it down to understand what are the feelings attached to it, what are the attitudes attached to it. So one of the strategies that we adopted, as we mentioned here, is that it was a community-driven study wherein we put together a multilingual questionnaire to reach out to a broader audience. Given the pandemic situation, it was online, and we also brought on board an ethics committee involving, community members, involving sociologists, to ensure that even the questions were, sensitive, inclusive to people cutting across different ideological standpoints. So that is one of the strengths, and which I will speak about while we speak about the objectives, was to understand the nature of dialogue on the subject, both in the private and public spaces, to investigate community attitudes and feelings, and most essentially to help bridge polarization, to take that first step to bring in that conversation and dialogue, and to go out of those echo chambers that we've so far been part of, to ensure there is conversation and dialogue and interaction happening. And eventually the main core aim was to recommend possibilities of building safe, inclusive and dignified spaces for women and girls to communicate and thrive in freely. As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't want to spend too much time on this, but some of the challenges was, of course, given that how contested the conversation has been, and how political it has turned out to be, it was difficult for us to bring an equal number of participants, holding different standpoints. But we tried our best, and we ensured that we sent in the questionnaires even to pro-Khatna community members, and we did get over 24, 25 responses from very pro-Khatna supporters as well. And the other thing was, of course, to collect data amidst the pandemic. So it was a digital study, but again, to deal with it, we did come up with multilingual forms of the questionnaire. And then, of course, to overcome our cognitive and representational bias, because we do come with a background of, of surviving the practice, of also advocating against it. So it was very important for us to provide a platform where everyone could feel free to actually present their standpoints irrespective of where they stand on the political stance against the practice or in support of it. Over the next few minutes, I'll just run you through some of the core findings. And first of all, while we were looking at the prevalence of the practice, nearly 85% of the respondents, female respondents in our study, had subjected to cut, and 86% of the respondents knew someone who was cut. So this was important to establish, the very prevalence of the practice. Secondly, it was one of the things that we were looking at was what are the kind of conversations. Of course, we're not detailing we will share the research with you in the chat box, but these are some of the main findings. The main part was like nearly 60% of our respondents found it really difficult or extremely difficult to have conversations on female khatna, particularly with other community members, including the religious leader, teacher, cutters, friends, doctors, and activists. And it was really difficult for them to, facilitate and engage in these conversations. And some of the core, topics of discussion that came about during the course's research that they indicated included the religious aspects of the practice, the medical understanding of the practice, and personal experiences of undergoing or of female khatna. The second core part of our research was on the attitudes and feelings. Again, we're just bringing out the highlights at this point, but nearly 50% of the participants indicated that they associated more public conversations on female khatna with feelings of empowerment, acceptance, representation, and comfort. While we also had 33% of the participants who associated conversations with feelings of discomfort, judgment, fear, nervousness, and misunderstanding. And these are very important aspects as we formulate our future course of action that we'll speak about. But one key aspect that we saw was nearly 20% of them associated conversations with feelings of anger. And this, this was at both points, whether you're in support or against the practice. This came up, and, where we also had narratives that people, shared their qualitative sort of, their own stories, where they said they were just angry that, some of them said that they were angry that they were up in the public space. Some others felt that, it was high time that the community was speaking more about it, and there was this general sense of anger. Yeah, the other part of it was to look at the campaigns and coverage. And among those who had come across the anti-Khatna campaigns, 50% indicated that they felt understood and represented by the dialogues and debates. But we also had 6% who felt uncomfortable and hurt. Some others, like the remaining, said that these campaigns made them think. Now, we again brought it down to why they were feeling what they were saying. One of the things that they said when they felt understood and represented was it reflected their personal beliefs, gave them strength to share their personal experiences, and reaffirmed a sense of community, not feeling alone. And those who felt uncomfortable said that made them angry, particularly the references to mutilation and the vocabulary that was being used. And they also felt that it was too personal a matter to be discussed in public. So again, we try to document everything, cutting across, basically the different standpoints. And finally, in terms of the way forward, something that we are also interpreting as a positive indication of the willingness of the community members was that nearly 74% of the participants said that they would be interested in continuing to have these conversations. And nearly 70% felt that these conversations should be held publicly. So we are taking it, based on this. I think, Priya, would you like to continue?
Yeah, sure. So very quickly, our prime theory of change is based on dialogue as a mover of change. And we want to help survivors open up on her, his, or their trauma. And Mumkin, being a tech company, our work lies in the intersection of research-based tech. Ritika's study, Speaking Up and Speaking With, was our way of trying to understand what does the community feel? How is the conversation, the decade-long conversation, making them feel? And by which we wanted a window into, are we on the right track when we design campaigns around it, when we create public campaigns around it, or even create storytelling initiatives around it, or tech around it. Next slide, please. I quickly want to get into the behavior strategy. Ritika, this previous slide. Yeah, just a few key points on our behavior strategy. We have adapted a highly respectful and inclusive communication, and by which we mean that we have literally told people, even if you believe that Khatna is done for a good reason, we will publish your thoughts as it is. If you go to the Mumkin research study page on our website, you will see literally a person on the left saying that I'm a PhD from UK. Why am I witch hunted? Because my community participates in Khatna. And a woman who's saying that, I feel very angry that this was done to me. So we wanted to, like Ritika mentioned earlier, give, step back with our representational and cognitive bias. Language has been something that we have to constantly, ongoingly rehash and rethink of, especially because we're talking about survivors and we're talking about designing communication around survivors. Next slide, please. And lastly, to understand triggers would be to understand how can we navigate this landscape a little bit better. If we clearly understand that some kind of communication is making the community angry, ultimately, we don't want to be preaching to the choir. We want to be able to open this debate up further so that we too become a country where FGMC is banned, where the community ground up supports this movement and not, some legal initiative from the outside. One important learning is that also we had to think through the medium of dissemination of communication. We'll be so happy to talk to you more about it. Please feel free to drop us a line at info@mumkinapp.com, and we'll also share a short video with you on FGC, or Khatna as it is known in the community, just in case you want to find out more about the practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ritika and Priya, for that really informative session. Our third presentation this evening is on Project Samwa, Digital Green. This USAID-funded and Digital Green project aims to improve maternal and child health outcomes through increased knowledge in nutrition, contraceptives, and encouraging communities to demand improved services. I'd like to introduce the two speakers. As a senior level social impact leader, Farhad Ali brings 2 decades of experience in the health and nutrition sector. He holds a master's degree in public health from the University of Heidelberg, Germany, with an international DAD fellowship. He currently leads health and nutrition work in Digital Green in the capacity of Chief of Party of USAID. Next, as a development professional, Sanjay Kumar brings over 11 years of experience in health and nutrition, sustainable livelihood, and women's empowerment. He holds a master's degree in social work from the Tata Institute of Social Services Sciences in India. Over to our third presentation, Project Samvad, Digital Green.
Good evening, everyone. I'm joined with Farhad, and we will be sharing about the experiences from Project Samvad, which is a multi-state project and that aims to impact the social norms concerning maternal and child health. So I would like to start with the context in which we started this project. Uh, just a minute. So when we were starting this project way back in 2015, we we had certain hypotheses and ideas in mind, and that help us to design this project. The first one was, like other social issues in health and nutrition also varies from place to place, and so does this manifestation. So for us, when we went to Uttarakhand, the issues of safe motherhood was of utmost important, whereas in the state of Assam, the instances of anemia was very much prevalent among the mother and the adolescent girls. So it was very important for us to have a sound understanding of local issues and the context. The second one was that based on our experiences of using behavior change models in agriculture, we knew that the content has to have some emotional connect. The content has to have some element with whom the local people can relate to, and that is going to give us a better outcome. And third one was that the familiarity with the context, content, and delivery is very important for the implementers to have an effective implementation in place. And next was about the people's learning behavior. People learn from each other and their experiences. So we wanted to create a platform where people can come together, share their experiences, and learn from each other. And next one was that it is very important to establish a very good relationship, a cordial relationship between the service provider and the community. And for that purpose, we focused on engaging with the frontline health workers like Asha and Anganwadi in India. And the last one was that we knew that the social norms are deeply rooted. And for that, in order to address those social norms, we need to have a right kind of tools and technology that can have greater influence on the social norms. So with these hypotheses and ideas in mind, we started this project, which aimed to provide the community with the right kind of platform and the tool to connect with each other, identify their issues, and find opportunities to disseminate their learnings and experiences. And with that, we started this project Samvad in the year 2015, and we implemented this project in partnership with Livelihood Mission, Health Mission, and Nutrition Mission, and also some of the trusted and active NGOs on the ground, like Center for Youth and Social Development and World Vision. The project was implemented in 6 states of India, that includes Bihar, Jharkhand, Uttarakhand, Assam, and Chhattisgarh. And the project had 3 key objectives. The first was to improve the nutritional behavior of women in first 1,000 days. Second was to improve the knowledge and increase the use of modern contraceptive method. And third, to build the capacity of the partner to adopt, scale, and institutionalize the approaches that we were trying to implement. With all this in mind, we started with our project, and in the very beginning, we conducted a formative research to understand what are the key behaviors that we want to impact. And for that, we adopted a life cycle approach thereby focusing on the first 1,000-day window of first 1,000-day window that starts from the pre-birth till the child is of 2 years age. And within that window, at the different stage, we identified over 20 to 25 behaviors that we wanted to influence. The next step was to understand the social norms that has direct or indirect influence on the behaviors that we want to influence. And for that purpose, under the each theme of the project, we identify set of social norms that we very carefully crafted our communication design. For example, under the family planning, we have come across the social norms like contraception is the women business, right? There are the norms like there are the norms or beliefs in the community that women who are using contraceptives are promiscuous. Even that women who doesn't have the children within the year of marriage, she is considered infertile. So what we found, these norms vary from place to place and manifest in different form, but these had direct impact or impact on the uptake of behavior that we wanted to promote. The next was similarly about the safe motherhood. We came across several social norms and that were present across the sites which were where we were implementing the project. And some of them were like, like still in many places of Bihar and Jharkhand, people don't want to reveal the early pregnancy, and that there's a belief that that might cause problem, right? And there's the common belief among the community people that even in the time of their mother-in-law or elder woman, no one consume some medicine for iron, right? Iron supplementation, and nothing went wrong. So this was kind of reinforcing this belief to them, and that was kind of preventing them to consume the iron folic acid that we wanted to promote. And similarly, there was other norms related to gender and also related to nutrition that were somehow somehow causing that were influencing the key practices and the norms we wanted to promote. And third focus area that we had is about the child's health. And in many parts of the country, even now, the women after delivering a baby is considered impure, and she is kept in isolation for a certain period of time. And same applies with the colostrum. Even my recent field visit, I have found that the newborn are fed with honey or jaggery or goat milk or cow milk, and the colostrum is just simply thrown away. So this we found was having direct impact on the early initiation of breastfeeding. Similarly, because of the marketing and advertisement, there is now a new belief that powder milk is better than breast milk, right? And in many communities, we found that they keep waiting for an auspicious occasion in order to start the complementary feeding. So all these social norms we found were directly, indirectly impacting the behavior that we wanted to change. That includes early breastfeeding, exclusive feeding for 6 months, complementary feeding, and dietary diversity. So with these in mind, we started developing our communication material. And for that purpose, we adopted the flagship approach of digital green, that is a participatory community video approach. And that has 4 key elements to it. The first is, in any community, we start with engaging with them, trying to identify the local problems, and identify the local change agents. And on the next step, we try do sort of contextualization, where we conduct the formative research, try to understand what are the local issues, what are the social norms that exist over there. So at part of the contextualization, we focus on formative issues and identifying the local change agent. And next step, which is very important, is the capacity building. So in case of Samvad, we build the capacity of frontline workers like ASA and Anganwadi on identifying the local issues, social norms, and converting them into a behavior change messages through SVCC method, and developing the local hyperlocal videos that we wanted to disseminate among people to influence the social behavior. So that is the next step. We do rigorous training, and we train these frontline worker on video production, video dissemination, and use of different digital media tools like WhatsApp, interactive voice response system, and mid and mass media tools to sort of disseminate this video. And the last element, which is very important to this project Samvad, is the sustainability, as it is the integral part of the program design. And we start with this with the partnership itself. We start with investing a lot in the partnership, and we try to we generate evidence and try to influence. We try to inspire our partner to sort of adopt and scale up the approach, so that this approach is sustained over the period, even after the project is over. So this is the approach we adopted to sort of achieve our objective. This slide talks about the overall approach of the project Samvad. You can see that in the planning and implementation, we keep the community at the center of focus, and we provide them with right kind of tools and platform for dissemination of messages like mobile vans, interactive voice response system, WhatsApp, radio, TV. At the same time, we also do rigorous training of the frontline workers. We train them on different aspects of community video approach, and then we try together with them. We try to create a surround sound effect and create awareness around the issues we want to kind of address. And this also this results in not only into increase in demand, but also creates awareness among the supply side stakeholders. And this way we also try to influence the supplies of essential commodities and services to the community. So this is a kind of this is a kind of holistic approach which we had adopted in this project. So as I like other projects, when we try to take this approach on the ground, we also face several challenges. And few of the challenges we wanted to share here is, when you try to introduce any new technology or an approach to the existing set of practices and systems, there is an initial initial reluctance among the stakeholders with whom we are trying to collaborate. And it requires a lot of time, patience, and an effort to get buy-in from the partner with whom you try to implement the project. And same happened with the Samvad also. The next thing was, in Project Samvad, instead of creating any parallel system and structure, what we are trying to do, we are trying to layer on the SBCC-based video approach on the existing public health extension system. And for that, we have kept the program design so flexible that whenever there is a requirement for a realignment of the realignment of this approach, we can do it. So for example, when we were working with the livelihood mission, that required a different set of engagement and different set of dissemination platform using the SSG as a medium. Whereas while working with the NHM, the health mission, we were directly working through the ASA channel. So the scope for flexibility and ability to align with varying priority of partner is also of the utmost important. And third challenge which we faced was the monitoring and data format varies from agency to agency, and that required us to adopt and align our format with the existing systems of the partner agency. For example, in the state of Chhattisgarh and Uttarakhand, we used a different kind of data collection method, whereas in case of Bihar, where we are partnering with the livelihood mission there, we try to integrate our data system within the MIS structure. So these are the few things which we faced and addressed over a period of 6 years, and then implemented the project in the states of Bihar, in the 6 states of India. These are the few key achievements that we have been able to achieve so far. Like we have trained over 5,000 frontline workers, including ASHA and Anganwadi, and on how to identify the local issues, develop a storyline, and produce hyperlocal videos, and also using different dissemination channels like WhatsApp, IVR, and participatory community meetings to sort of disseminate these key messages. We have also directly reached over 7,000 women through our frontline workers, and over 350,000 women through channels like IVR and WhatsApp. Our partner and the frontline workers have produced over 100 local videos in Hindi, in Hindi, Chhattisgarhi, and Odia. Similarly, we have developed 50 audios, which are very hyper local and that are being used over the IVR channels and also during mass media campaign by the government. In order to measure and in order to assess and measure the change over the period, we conducted a longitudinal study. We conducted 6 rounds of biannual and quarterly lean surveys in the project state, and that was done in collaboration with London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So after this, I am going to screen a short video, which will give you a glimpse of Project Samvad, and then I will request Farhad to share the lessons learned and the way forward from the Samvad.
की एक नई शुरुआत, प्रोजेक्ट संवाद। परिवार नियोजन हो या जच्चा बच्चा की सेहत या हो पोषण की जानकारी, प्रोजेक्ट संवाद के कम्युनिटी वीडियो के माध्यम से मिल रही है सभी को जानकारी। तभी तो रख पा रहे हैं सभी अपने परिवार की सेहत का ख्याल। सीख रहे हैं सामुदायिक स्वास्थ्य कर्मी गुर वीडियो बनाने का और लोगों को वीडियो के माध्यम से जागरूक करने का। इस पहल के तहत किया गया है प्रशिक्षित 5,000 से ज्यादा सामुदायिक स्वास्थ्य कर्मियों को सामुदायिक वीडियो को बनाने और प्रसारित करने के लिए हिंदी, उड़िया और छत्तीसगढ़ी भाषा में 100 से ज्यादा लोकल वीडियो तैयार हुए हैं सामुदायिक स्वास्थ्य कर्मियों और लोगों की मदद से। प्रोजेक्ट संवाद की शुरुआत जो रच रही इतिहास।
So now I will request Farhad to join and share the lessons learned and way forward the Samvad project. Farhad, over to you.
So I think we have overshooted the time. So I think I'll quickly come to the last slide. Sanjay, if you could flip the slides. So as Sanjay was mentioning that we have done a couple of rounds of lean survey in the project to sort of understand how this project is making a change in terms of knowledge increase and adoption of new practices. So we have quite a good, evidence that it is helping us. But due to poor management of time from our end, I'll quickly like to talk about the way forward in the project. So it's important that, moving from human mediated dissemination, it's time to sort of engage the community into a virtual platform. So that is something that we are still figuring out how we can do it. Second is it's really important to automate the process of data collection for the purpose of analytics and understand where the program is moving. So a tech-based solution would really be important going forward and scaling up this project. The next important thing is to develop a loop of feedback, which means that we need to continuously understand how the program is making change and what kind of new videos needs to be sort of produced to impact those areas. And the last point I would like to mention is a blended system of learning would be really helpful, because all of those trainings could not be delivered over a virtual platform. So face-to-face training supported by virtual learning would probably be helpful to sort of scale up the project and enhance the capacity of the frontline functionaries to develop new videos and disseminate it. I'll close it. Over to you, Rangoli.
Thank you so much, Farhad. So already we've had quite a few questions coming up in the chat box, and some of the presenters have also responded. Farhad, if you want, you can maybe also fill out, share more information in the chat box with the other participants. So we're coming to the last presentation for the day. In South Asia, we are plagued by the high rates of child marriages. 1 in 3 of the world's child brides live in India. Our two last speakers for our presentation break through India's work on early marriage are Rani Yadav and Naina Chowdhury. Rani Yadav is a social development professional. She holds a postgraduate degree in development communication and extension from Lady Irwin College, Delhi. She has more than 5 years of experience in the social development sector in the areas of adolescent empowerment, GBV, gender-biased sex selection, early marriage, education, and health-related services. Naina Chowdhury leads programs at Breakthrough, and she comes with over 2 decades of experience in the development sector. She has a master's in social work from University of Delhi and has worked on the rights of Dalits and tribes in the grassroots from India. So over to both of you for the last presentation for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamini. I'm sharing the screen. So today I will speak on our early marriage program. And before this, let me introduce my organization. Breakthrough is an organization that is working for the past 20 years to make gender-based discrimination and violence against women and girls unacceptable. And we all know that early marriage and forced marriage is a big problem. And from the past 2 decades, there has been no significant decline in early marriage in India. Even today, 1 in every 4 girls get married before the legal age, and it is unacceptable. Early marriage is one of the greatest indicator for gender-based discrimination. And we have seen girls who married before 18 are more likely to experience domestic violence and are less likely to remain in schools. With this intention, we had started the intervention in Bihar and Jharkhand. And we also wanted to see the efficacy of the program. So we have created the Rct Model. Breakthrough is a norm change organization. So it is extremely important for us to see what are the norms that drives early marriage. And social norms are unique norms. These are the rules that people follow because they believe others follow it and others expected them to follow. So challenging and changing social norm is difficult, slow, and rigorous process, requiring a coordinated collective process across the entire ecosystem. Breakthrough focus on the social norm change, and we want to make ensure that we shift the norm perspective and how it is working that particular ecosystem to create strategy that needed in the program. Now I'm going to talk about the program. So I will spend most of my time on this slide. So please bear with me. At the baseline, we have done the baseline, and baseline we have found that sexual harassment and unequal gender norms are major reasons for getting girls married early. And we saw that the average age at marriage is also very low in Bihar and Jharkhand, that is 15.41 years. And there is a low involvement of boys and girls in marriage decision. And on the basis of these findings, we have decided this planned intervention. And in the planned intervention, there are 3 components. First is mass media campaign, where in this segment, messages are aired on radio, television, newspaper, cinema. The second component was training and mentoring. This was done at the block level to mentor and train youth group, self-help group, and government official. The third component was committee mobilization and interactive media. In this, this was done at the Gram Panchayat level. Different kind of activities are conducted, like Kisori Mela, puppet show, video van. And in this third segment, we have also conducted 2 type of training. First is deep engagement with the adolescent through Taruki Toli module, and second is training with the other relevant community stakeholders. And as I have already in the beginning said that this project is based on the Rct model. So we have worked on the 6 districts in across Bihar and Jharkhand. Out of 3 districts are in treatment arm, and 3 districts were in the control arm. And in the treatment arm, we have provided different kind of 4 different kind of treatment. Treatment 1 is basically about mass media activity in the selected GPs. Treatment 2 was basically about a training package. We have provided training in the selected GPs. Third package is a community mobilization package, which is combination of community mobilization and mass media activity. And last package is full package, which is combination of all these 3 activities: mass media campaign, training component, and community mobilization. And by doing this, we want to make sure that the age at marriage and year of schooling decreases, and age at marriage and year of schooling increases, and incident of early marriage decreases. And this is one of the important slide that I want all of your attention in this slide. I'm going to showcase how socio-ecological model works towards gender norm, and child and adolescent are the central focus of the program. But we also work with the family, extended family, and community, because we believe that working with the child is putting child at the risk. So we focus on the multiple stakeholder approach across the entire ecosystem, so that the norms change happen and it is sustained for the long run. And during the concurrent evaluation, we realized that the importance of father in our whole intervention area. So we have created a Rasmi metric pass video this video we have used in the community mobilization activity in the intervention, and we have also shared this video with the government officials. I would like to showcase this video here.
क्या लिखा? मैं हूँ रश्मि, मैट्रिक पास।
अरे रश्मि बिटिया आ गई?
मैं हूँ रश्मि, मैट्रिक पास।
नहीं बिटिया, गांव में जब लड़कियां सयानी हो जाती हैं तो शादी करती हैं, मैट्रिक नहीं, समझी?
क्या हुआ बेटे?
आप झूठ बोलते हैं। लोग कहते हैं मैं मैट्रिक पास नहीं कर सकती, आप मेरा शादी करवा देंगे।
मुझ पर विश्वास है तेरा?
तू जैसा चाहे
ये मेरा वादा है, तुम जरूर बनोगी मैट्रिक पास।
एक पिता का वादा निभाने के लिए चाहिए हर माता पिता का सहयोग, जिससे देश की 8 करोड़ लड़कियों की तरह रश्मि का ब्याह 18 वर्ष से पहले न हो। आप अगर साथ देंगे तो रश्मि बनेगी मैट्रिक पास।
मैं हूँ रश्मि, मैट्रिक पास।
Through this video, we try to showcase that the father role in the girls' education. Now I'm going to talk about the project challenges that we have faced during the program design to the on-ground activity. The first challenge was norm-related issues that is addressed in the program from time to time based on the evaluation findings. Second challenge was the structural challenge that was also done based on the findings, because just working on the social norms mindset will not bring about the change. The response mechanism was weak, and the poor infrastructure in school also created a big barrier. Many of these barriers were beyond us, and they remain as a challenge during the project. And the last challenge that we have faced in this program was Rct design that brought implementation challenge. Villages were too scattered, and the intervention also affected as Bihar government brought it in state-wide campaign against child marriage, in which breakthrough help and control villages didn't strictly remain in the control area. These are the basic some of the challenges that we have faced in the program implementation process. And the program made a significant improvement in the indicator on girls' education, incident of early marriage, and age at marriage. In the full package intervention, increase age at marriage of girl, increase by 6.5 months, education by 9 months, and gender attitude increase by 16% among adolescents. Early marriage rate also declined, and girls are more likely to enroll in school, especially in our intervention area compared to the control area. And another big achievement was of this project was that in Bihar government early marriage campaign, we were the technical partner in designing and implementing the campaign. And other like-minded CSOs have also joined our movement to speak up early marriage and started a program in their area. But what was more interesting was how the gender narrative changed from the baseline to endline. And here I would like to invite Noina to speak about this.
Thank you, Rani. Can you give me the next slide, please? Yeah.
Yes.
So, like Rani said, that one of the most interesting thing about this project was how the norms were shifting in the community as well as in the parents' minds, because in breakthroughs, in breakthroughs idea, that's the only thing that is sustainable. So even when breakthrough is not there, if the norm shift, then the project gains are going to stay there. So you would see that one of the most important norm that shifted was that in the beginning of the project period, we were told that girls being harassed and the fear of girls choosing their own partners are good enough reasons for getting girls married early. You will see in this slide that they have come down significantly during the project period from 28% to 9%. And the other indicator about girls choosing marriage has come down to about 13%. So these are some of the norm shifts that has really made us hopeful that this project is going to bring significant change over a period of time in the age of marriage. The next one, Rani. So the learning and the way forward, what we have learned from this, which Rani talked about as the full package, which is we realize that the socio-ecological model is actually the model to go about if you are going to work on norm change around issues such as early marriage, which is so deep-rooted in the community. You have to keep the adolescent in the center, but you have to constantly work with the other stakeholders in the community. The program showed that if there is focused intervention on the issue, the attitudes towards gender-based discrimination changes, even in the most regressive areas. We also saw that there is a need of long-term intervention. So after this project, we at Breakthrough believe that if we have gone into some state, we are going to, or we are investing in some area, we want to stay there for 5 to 10 years because norms are sticky and they are not changing within a very short span of time. Of course, you know that there is a huge problem around the attention span of donors, but we try and work around that challenge, because we have seen even in UP that the norms at the family level change at around 3 to 5 years, but the community level norms take about 5 to 10 years. The last thing, it is important to reimagine the work around women and girls, even by the CSOs. That's what is our understanding. At times, we civil society organizations also get very caught up by the normative issues. We do a certain kind of program for girls. When we think of aspiration of girls, we only offer certain kind of skills. We only offer certain kind of program for women and girls. We will also have to rethink about their productive, reproductive, and social roles. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Naina and Rani. Such informative work, and which actually leads us to the last session for today. We have about 10 minutes left for the Q&A. And just to sum up, this evening we've heard examples ranging from working in companies such as in Bangladesh to not only implement an intervention, but also to build a business case for other companies to conduct such work, to communities such as in Project Samvad, which took many efforts to ensure all activities and SBCC material developed were recognized into the community language and used videos to promote the required messages. And also working across the socio-ecological model, as mentioned just now by Breakthrough, to change social norms in such a difficult area as child marriages. And the Mumkin app deployed the use of technology to understand current social norms, which would help design interventions. And I think in this time of COVID, in the pandemic, we have understood the need to use digital technology for our work even more. So it's interesting because it's good that some of the questions that were raised by some participants have already been answered in the chat box. So given that we have around 10 minutes time, what I'd like to do is first ask 3 questions and ask the speakers to respond quickly, succinctly, and perhaps if needed, provide more information in the chat box. So my first 3 questions are to Naina and to Project Samvad. So first, maybe Naina. So since the aim of the project is strongly based on changing social norms that were there previously, what about the vacuum that was then created through the change? How did the community respond? What were the challenges? And also I would like Project Samvad, someone from the team, to respond if possible, because you are also looking to change all these deeply held attitudes towards contraceptive usage and maternal newborn healthcare. And to Priya from Mumkin, I'd like to pose the question of, we all face this challenge of not preaching to the choir. And when it comes to social norm change, how do you actually, what would you, in your view, use to facilitate raising these voices of those who are too vulnerable to speak and to engage those who don't usually engage in this work, not the choir, in other words. So these are actually 3 questions to 3 people. So I would ask you all to respond. Maybe Naina, if you could go first, please.
Yeah, sure. Breakthrough believes in flipping the norms. So that's the line we use all the time. We say that, it is not about creating that vacuum, but giving you something to hold on to when you are not following something you have been following for so long. If I give you an example, Breakthrough has a media campaign called Share Your Story with Your Son, which is a very popular campaign. And we know that sexual harassment is a reality for Indian women, actually women across the world. And women are made to be silent about it. And especially mothers do not talk to their sons about sexual harassment, what happens on the road or what happens to them. So Breakthrough actually flipped the norm and created a video which talks about share your story with your son. Don't let what has happened to you happen to another woman. So we are not saying that, that when this goes, what happens is already given, right? So for example, if you again, another example, if you look at the Ring the Bell campaign, in the Ring the Bell campaign, you will see that Breakthrough is saying it very clearly that violence is not a private matter. If it is not a private matter, what do you have to do? You have to ring the bell. Yeah. So there is always something given to flip the norm, and so that there is no vacuum that's created. Yeah. Because like you would be well aware, if there is a vacuum, there is a chance of it rolling back to the original space. Thank you, Kamani.
Thank you so much, Naina. Yes, this work requires so much effort, and it's interesting, how do you sustain the change is also a question I would like to ask later on. But Farhad, I believe you would be taking the next question.
There was a call, so I just missed the next question that was being asked. But just want to say a few things about the approach that we have and how it is impacting the norms around the issues we are working. I think there are two things about Samvad project if I have to speak about it. One is the use of a very simple technology, right? Uh, which has come into the hands of the people and the frontline functionaries. Now they can talk to each other and they can create something which was at one point of time was believed to be done by some super expert people, coming from somewhere and do a video shoot and make something and which will be people, which will be seen by the people, right? So now it doesn't happen anymore. Now people can create a content. They can raise their voice. They can identify an issue by themselves. They can talk about a solution. They can share it with the community, with the peer, and then this peer-to-peer connection can happen and they can learn from each other. Now that's the power that Samvad project has actually given to the frontline functionaries, right? So the power of technology is one, and an opportunity for the people to raise their issue. I think these are two critical things that Samvad is building on. So if you could tell me about the second question, I'm sorry, I'll be trying to sort of respond to that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Very, very helpful. Now the question was about, you're changing, even in your project, you were aiming to change these very strong, hard held beliefs around contraceptive usage and maternal health. And so when you change that, what is a vacuum? What is left? What could possibly, what do you counteract in your project? Did you look into that, or does that come up in the implementation or maybe post-implementation of the project?
I think one thing that I wanted to speak about, and that was the learning of the project, was a continuous feedback loop and a continuous practice of doing formative research. Now, what happens if you have made a video on a specific topic that the community feels is important for them? Now, when there is this discussion happening in a group setting where health representatives are there and the community women are also there and they are showcasing an issue and talking about it, certain new things can come up. Now that note has to be taken and it should be researched by the community and the frontline functioning. And a new video needs to be produced. So that formative research, taking a note of the feedback that comes and creation of new content by the people is really important. I think these are the probably two ways by which we can actually fill up this gap.
Thank you. Thank you, Farhad. So over to Priya to answer the burning question we all have. How do we preach not to the choir? Over to you, Priya.
Thank you for that question. I love that one. And to answer that, I will tell you a personal story and a public stance. The public stance here is no matter how many times we are told female genital mutilation, FGM, no matter which report that comes to us from, we always write back by saying FGC, female genital cutting. We do this in the Asian context because we understand the communities are massively triggered with the word mutilation. Ultimately, we are speaking to communities. These communities are well-to-do, well-educated, travel the world. Half the population lives in Western countries. And so we cannot be not using the word of communities' preference to begin with, no matter what WHO says. And now WHO too endorses the term female genital cutting / mutilation. And the last word is always with the survivor of the community, what she wants to address this term, whatever she underwent. The personal anecdote. When Ritika, Arifa were in the thick of disseminating this research, we started getting some messages on a WhatsApp forward. And the messages were like, hey, don't take this survey. This has been circulated by such and such group, and I debar you to take the survey, and so on and so forth. You can imagine. And they did not know we were on the WhatsApp group also. So like Farhad mentioned, eyes and nose pressed to the ground. We would rethink the whole medium of dissemination, recreate a video. And I'm really missing the video presentation. I come from a filmmaking background myself. And after seeing the lovely videos of Samvad and Breakthrough, we hope we can screen it sometime. Really, with our eyes and nose pressed to the ground, we would rethink and rebuild everything by whatever the community is responding to us and however they are responding to us in whichever medium. So those are some ways we try and negotiate not to preach to the choir. It's always a constant negotiation, but it's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think, yes, the constant negotiation, patience, accompanied by patience and creativity. How do you keep drawing these groups in? Thank you so much. So the last question, because actually we have only 1 minute left, is to break through, because I spoke specifically on the socio-ecological model developed by Laurie Heisey on prevention of GBV. So talking about, the biggest challenge we face as recipients of funds is the short time frame. And we know behavioral change requires at least 10 years, but we don't have that luxury. So could you just give maybe a few points on what strategies you would love to have used if you had more time? And also I wanted to encourage the other speakers. Priya, you said you wish you could have shared the link, the video. Maybe if you could drop the link to the video in the chat box, that would help. And that's also, I'm encouraging all the other speakers, if there's any additional material you'd like to share, please share the links. Thank you. Over to Nayana.
Yeah, Kamani. So there is always a heartburn, right? That you are not in control of the resources that you want to deploy in a community. But at Breakthrough, we have kind of taken this hard call that we are not going to go everywhere doing the full deep impact change. But we would, wherever we are present, we are going to be there for at least 10 years. Because we see definite changes in the community, we see definite changes in the lives of people, and we talk about a generational shift. So we work with 11 to 14-year-olds, 15 to 18-year-olds as with a curriculum called Taroki Toli. Then we work with 19 to 25-year-olds as leaders in the community. So when we are out of that community due to shortage of fund, we have our hands and our brains and our eyes and our ears to the ground still. So this breakthrough rights generation has always worked for us, and we call them team change leaders at this point in time. They're the people who holds up the work. But if you ask us, we try to do as much as possible, and we create a 10-year framework. We create a 10-year framework, and if a donor comes in between, we say we are in the 5th year of this. This is what you are going to get at this point in time. It's a hard negotiation, but we are learning to do that. Yeah. Thanks, Kamani.
Thank you so much. Great way to end the session. And I just wanted to say also, I did not raise questions on the first project because actually they were responded in the chat. So thank you so much, speakers, for such a wonderful job of sharing so much information. And I'd like to hand it over to Rangolina to close today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamini. Before we close, I'd like to take a few minutes to recognize everyone who's made today's session possible. First, of course, to Kamini for moderating our discussion today and tying all these diverse ideas and programs into a very compelling story. Second, I'd like to credit our presenters and their thoughtful and nuanced analysis. Given that norm shifting programs are few and far between in South Asia, this has been a very meaningful experience. Third, I'm grateful to the guidance that we have received from Dr. Pavan Mamedi from CSVC and Indrajit Chaudhary and Sushmita Mukherjee from PCI. And I would also like to acknowledge Shweta Bankar and Sharmishta Chakrabarti for their support in putting this program together. Finally, I would like to extend my gratitude to our audience for joining us today. Your engagement and enthusiasm are the driving forces behind our sessions. If you would like to be kept apprised of future events hosted by the collaborative, please consider joining the SASNLC. The link to register is in the chat box, and I hope to see many of you in future sessions. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Lovely connecting again. Bye. All the best with your work.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.